Hi everyone, this week's video will discuss fire and rehire tactics, or as us boring employment lawyers call it, termination and re-engagement. I don't think that's an attractive enough headline for the newspapers, but you may have heard about this in the media. So just a brief bit of background on changing terms and conditions of employment. There may be a limited right to do so in the contract. That will generally apply in relation to rights which are not particularly significant or onerous, such as a change in pay date or pay frequency. More significant terms to the contract have to be changed by mutual agreement between employer and employee, unless the business wants to take a significant risk and unilaterally change the terms, creating a risk of a breach of contract argument. So every effort should be made to reach agreement by way of consultation with employees. Policies need to be consulted through the decision-making process, and it needs to be a comprehensive exercise to reach the objective that you want. If a decision or if agreement cannot be reached by the parties, and the company decides they want to change the terms of employment in any event, we may use the process of termination and re-engagement, which means dismissing the employees from their old contract on giving contractual notice and immediately offering re-engagement on the new terms, hoping that the employee will sign up to that new contract at the point of dismissal. Employers must follow a fair dismissal process in order to reach that stage, and I would advise a period of consultation meetings culminating in a formal termination discussion at which I would offer representation from a colleague or trade union representative to the employee. If we get that wrong and an employee has more than 2 years of service, they will have unfair dismissal protection, and that's why the consultation exercise and the business rationale for making the change is absolutely key. So why has this been in the media? Well, through the pandemic, and actually pre-pandemic as well, but not particularly reported, there have been high-profile cases on use of this practice, and concerns have been raised that this tactic has been used by employers to diminish and undermine workers' terms and conditions. The government then asked ACAS to review the position, the outcome of which was put into a report published by ACAS on the 8th of June on the practice of termination and re-engagement, or hire and fire. Fire and rehire. So the review looked at the historic use of termination and re-engagement. Opinions were obtained from both parties. The positives include the ability to use the scheme to avoid redundancies, particularly during the pandemic. So it was used to refine jobs, perhaps give shorter working notice, agree different pay structures or benefits, reducing certain maybe pay bonuses, pension rights, that sort of thing. Terms and conditions could be harmonised, so businesses use this as an opportunity to look at all the different contracts they had in place and to standardise those terms across all of their employees. It can be used where contracts are outdated and we want to introduce more flexibility or perhaps more protection, maybe in terms of post-termination provisions for the employer. On the other hand, there were obviously negatives of the procedure that were raised during the consultation exercise. It can be used to break continuity of service, so there may be a termination followed by a break in employment, and employers using that to then rehire at a later point, minimising the risk of an unfair dismissal claim. And really an overall suggestion that in terms of the balance of power, it all lies with the employer, because the suggestion is that as long as they get their process right, they can undermine employees' rights and simply bring the contract to an end if they don't get what they want. The ACAS Chief Executive, Susan Clues, said, "Some of the participants told us about the business challenges of COVID-19 and how the use of fire and rehire can help reduce redundancies. Others believe the practice is unacceptable and the pandemic has simply been used as a smokescreen to diminish workers' terms and conditions." Now, I don't doubt there will be some opportunism from some employers in terms of the use of this process, but what we've also got to consider is that many businesses have been struggling and would have had to make large-scale redundancies or possibly even close the business if they didn't use these tactics. Now that guidance, so that review has been discussed at government level. They have now commented that no heavy-handed legislation is required to ban fire and rehire at this stage, but they did advise ACAS have been instructed to prepare clearer guidance on the fire and rehire tactic, when that should be used, and good practice for employers. Now, when that guidance comes out, I doubt very much that it will be used in the same way as the Code of Practice on Discipline and Grievance, i.e. I don't think tribunals will have the power to refer to it and consider compliance with the code, but it may provide some helpful pointers on how to use dismissal and re-engagement as a possible option to achieve a variation. We are here as well, of course, so if you do need advice on changing terms and conditions of employment, then please do get in touch. Visit the website chadwicklawrence.co.uk for contact details, or email employmenthub@chadlaw.co.uk. Thank you.